Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us and tackling another one of these probably not so exciting topics, but one of the essential ones, because if we haven't got the funding right, then it's pretty hard to run an early childhood centre these days. So I'm sure that getting things right in that respect is pretty important. We were just going to have a little poll. Are we going to do that now? I think we might. I'd be interested to know how recently people have had an audit. So tonight's topic is getting audit ready, but I'd just be kind of interested to know from those of you out there when you last had an audit, or even if you've had an audit at all as far as the funding audit goes. So the poll's going to come up on your screen.
Great, fantastic, Sue. Hi, it's Tina here. I think you might have just seen my elbow. How are you all? So I'll show you the results of the poll in a minute. Those of you that haven't completed, just have a go. We're nearly there. We've got about 80, nearly 90% of you have voted. That's fantastic. So I'm going to close the poll and show you now. So just quickly, Sue, what you're looking at is a real mixture in terms of results. So 18% of people have never had an audit, 21% in the last 12 months, 35% or just over a third 2 to 5 years ago, just under a quarter more than 5 years ago, and a little small group of people not sure. So that gives you an indication of where things are at for everybody.
Okay, well, great. Thank you for participating in that, because that does give us a really good cross section. It's always interesting. I get lots of questions from people saying, "Oh, I wonder when auditors, or how often do auditors come?" And it's quite an interesting question in that about 60% of the audits that are done each year are done for centres that come up on the Ministry of Education's radar as having some element of risk. So that could be a range of different things, or where they've received some intelligence about that centre where they think that an audit might be appropriate. The other 40% of audits are just done purely at random. So unlike the ERO cycle, where there is an actual cycle where you can expect to see the Education Review Office at regular times, the audits are a little bit hit and miss. So just because you've had one or you haven't had one for 5 years doesn't mean that they've forgotten about you. It could be that they're on the radar for the next few months, or it might be that you might not see them for another 3 or 4 years. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. So let's get underway. What tonight's about is funding audits. That's why we're all here. And just as this first slide is just a reference one, so that you can take this away and look up any of the information that I'm providing you in that early childhood funding handbook. So as far as what I'm talking about, the information is scattered throughout the funding handbook. Those of you that are familiar with the handbook know that it runs for some many pages, and there's not just one place that you go to get this information. So it's scattered throughout that funding handbook in the various sections. Okay, what I plan to cover with you tonight are the record-keeping requirements in a reasonable amount of detail, given the amount of time we've got, to provide you with a bit of a checklist so that you know what are the things that you need to go back and make sure that you've got in your centre. And then we'll have a little chat at the end about those common mistakes that auditors tend to pick up.